Welcome back to our coverage of the LEC playoffs. Of course, OG bouncing back in the series, bringing us back to 1-1 with, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, a very unique, very kind of crazy draft, I think it's safe to say.
Crazy? I mean, I guess so. There's some champions that we haven't seen in a while, but a lot of the OG pocket picks came out. We have the Senazillion that Fnatic beat OG with, so I guess that was their osmosis learning through that pummeling. And then Nuke and Alphari have shown the Cassio and the Kennen throughout their careers. I think the big turning point was the set jungle, but we've heard rumors of that coming from scrims as well as solo queue. So nice to see the mad scientist Xerxe pull it back out.
For me, it's just the key thing is just the Azir ban. I feel like both Finn and Larssen have showed like champion pools that can be manipulated in a way, and we saw now the progression for Larssen has been Azir blind pick into Corki blind pick. Corki that is a champion that is much easier to counter than Azir. Azir is relatively safe at every point in the game. Cassio into Corki is a good matchup, and then top side. Kennen is not something that we've seen a lot, but it's something that Alphari loves to play, and the reason why it's so genius into Renekton is buffed in the case of, getting Blade the Ruin King. That's what makes him so strong, but he can't really itemize Blade the Ruin King into Kennen. It's going to be super, super tricky. It's not going to have that same effect, that same punch into other melee matchups, so the Kennen adaptation is super, super strong, and in this case, the game looked exactly like the previous game, but just flipped on its head. The scaling of Corki Ezreal couldn't just pan out to that point because Renekton was just bleeding all over the rogue carpet too soon.
And I think that there's really interesting dynamics happening with the jungle pool. I felt like coming into this, and we talked about it multiple times, kind of watching that game, that Xerxe's champion pool was becoming an issue, at least his effective champion pool of what he's shown. Like, he's shown the Lee Sin, but he doesn't look as confident on it as other champions. So when you ban out Gragas Karthus, it was like, what was Xerxe going to reach for that would be effective? So now that he has another arrow in his bow with this set, and then the fact that Inspired doesn't reach for things like the Elise, that they probably knew it was going to be Sejuani, and they're thinking Sejuani Renekton, that's still a really strong 2v2. Doesn't necessarily have the same dive potential, but you lose some of that bite and it becomes much easier to predict between kind of the overlapping jungle pools of Inspired and Xerxe.
And of course, when we look at how it panned out in the early game, you already mentioned it a little bit, Yamato bleeding out, not able to stop that, and it was Finn, to me, looking a little exposed in this game, struggling immensely, and, we did see Rogue try to fire back, try to make some plays of their own, but every single OG play felt like it worked out, whereas Rogue just were not able to get their feet back from under them, and when Finn gets pressured like this, we've said it before, we said it in previous series, that it just doesn't feel like he can do much of anything.
I feel like the key thing there with Xerxe had the invade, took the Gromp away, spotted Sejuani out, got the free gank into top side. Xerxe had a good performance. The bottom matchup allowed Senna and Zillion to push. There was very little room to punish anything on the map the moment Renekton died on top side, because if Renekton falls behind in this lane, any kind of gank attempt onto Kennen is going to look desperate. We saw that one moment where if maybe Inspired aimed his W a little bit better, Kennen would die, but that wouldn't be enough to shift the tide of the matchup. Sejuani needs to impact that lane early on and shut down any type of prio that Sejuani could have, and then the moment Origen got a lead, it's just Rogue is not the type of team to do anything out of the ordinary to break themselves out of those shackles, especially with the draft they had. They had the Manamune and Trinity Force stacking, so they don't even have that many options to do so.
I just really want to underline that point, because I think Origen are also in the same boat, and so what viewers are going to see over the course of the series and what these two games show is that when one team breaks ahead, the other team kind of slowly watches them run away with the game. And so I think this series is probably going to feel really one-sided in terms of how the games go down, of whoever gets early lead just walks away with it rather than sprinting away, because neither of these teams will throw the curveball. The only time that Origen really seemed to explode with their lead or kind of raise pace of the game was when Rogue were trying to make picks and ran into them. It wasn't Origen initiating on Rogue, it was Rogue throwing Sejuani ultimates and them whiffing, and then Origen just turning around and punching them in the face.
I mean, brutal description, but I think absolutely fair. And of course, when we look at the gold graphs coming out of these games, it's always going to tell that story that you're talking about, which is, hey, one team builds a lead, the other team slowly dies. Eventually, they're forced to try something. In this case, you talk about Road trying to make that play in the mid lane. Of course, for OG last game, it was that kind of final, desperate Elder Dragon. We saw some questionable final moments from Hans Sama as well in this game. And I think the question that comes from me out of that is, how much now do teams invest on early game with the knowledge that whichever team starts the snowball just seems to keep it rolling for the entire game?
It's all about finding the key balance, right? In this game, it was a bit too heavy-handed with the Yuumi Ezreal. It was very wise of Origen to match up with Senna Zillion, because honestly, in my opinion, Senna Zillion just is the perfect counter to it, because it just does better at every point of the game what Ezreal and Yuumi want to do. So I think just balance. I think the Kennen adaptation is really, really key. But the deeper question for me is if Rogue have deeper pockets in terms of what was picked here. I think on the red side it becomes easier for Rogue to kind of maneuver around this, but if the series progresses to the point where Origen can just say that, okay, we're just going to blind pick Kennen, you take the Renekton, we don't mind, we remove the Ornn so Finn doesn't have that scaling option, and this is the point in time in best of fives where it's all about how deep does your champion pool go, and I think Origen has the favor here.
Yeah, I won't dispute that. I think if you're a Rogue fan and you're looking for how Rogue kind of attack or at least get an early lead, it is usually going to start with the jungler. So my eyes are going to be on Inspired, hopefully teaming up with Finn, because I agree. I think it's going to be pretty defensive bot lanes being traded back and forth. Senna's, Ezreal's, Yuumi's letting those champions go through. So I want to see Finn and Inspired change it up, try to get a stronger 2v2, and hopefully fight back against Alphari.
All right, well, you've heard what the experts have to say. Let's hear more from a special guest and Lore as they're standing by.
Thank you very much, Dracos, and thank you, Dandan, for joining me during this series. Are you enjoying the series so far, Dandan?
Well, it's a bit of a bittersweet series right now because watching it is kind of a lose-lose situation for me. If Origen wins, it's more of a we wouldn't have beaten Origen anyway if we lost. If Rogue wins, we're like, that could have been us. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, looking at it right now with Origen bouncing back pretty effectively, I want to say, and the desk mentioning the fact that Finn was very unlucky here with his laning. I wanted to ask you, as a top laner, how impactful was the Kennen pick here, and why was it a good option in Origen's draft?
I think it was more of a. I think that just Alphari is just really confident in this in this matchup. I think that Finn is really confident playing ranked into anything that's melee, but from what I've seen this game, he wasn't all too confident in, or he didn't really know the matchup all too well, because he thought he was going to get level 3 Toph, so he called his Sejuani top lane level 3 to cover him, but that kind of made his pathing a little bit awkward, so Xerxe got really, really far ahead in the jungle, and then his Sejuani pop side again, set his top lane, and then he's just in a really rough spot, so I think it was more of matchup knowledge, because I think Ranked should actually win this matchup. On side lane later on as well, so he should get prio. But yeah, I just think it was more of a matchup knowledge issue this game.
Okay, so knowledge matchup, and the fact that Dracos and the desk also mentioned that Rogue and Origen have a hard time playing from behind. Do you think that pressure and the fact that whichever team loses gets out of playoffs is impactful here on the way they play?
I just think that both teams are somewhat uncomfortable playing from behind. Yeah, I just think that. I just think that whatever team just gets ahead. We can see both series here. Whoever just gets ahead is just a free win for them. I also think that there's quite important differences in drafts. I think. Both teams that actually won the game had really simple drafts to execute.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think that both drafts were quite one-sided to the teams that won.
Okay, and how do you expect the series to develop based on that and based on what we saw from both of these teams so far? Who can take it? And if so, can they do it convincingly?
I think both games are going to be somewhat similar. I think that whatever team gets ahead early on is going to have really strong fundamentals and going on. I think Origen has somewhat stronger fundamentals than Rogue, but Rogue is probably more creative. So I think it depends on a lot whether Finn can translate this lead into other lanes or if Alphari can just play out the 1v1 or not.
All right, so all to be decided in the early game, hopefully here. We'll see about that in a few minutes. Dandan, thank you very much for the interview. And we're going to take a 3-minute break and we'll come back for Game 3.
to Rogue versus Origen in the LEC playoffs lower bracket. Loser of this series is eliminated from the Spring Split playoffs, and the winner goes on to face G2 Esports on Sunday. There's a lot on the line as the series is 1-1. I'm Quickshot, joined by Ender once again. We are already into the draft, and just very quickly, I wanted to let everyone know that the previous game that Origen just won was their second fastest win of the split, only beaten by their victory over Mad in week 4. So a dominant victory. And the opening question that I have to ask to Ender is, do we want to see these teams changing playstyle? It feels like 2 games in a row, the jungler has led the way. They've unlocked the bottom lane and kind of played through bot to win. Rogue's done it once, OG's done it once, and now that we're in draft, Ender, what would you like to see?
Yeah, so Quickshot, I do want to see things change, but I feel like almost always the conversation becomes, well, what do we change in the draft? Like, obviously the game was lost. What picks need to change? And, well, yes, I think some picks can be changed here or there. At the end of the day, it comes down to the gameplay for me.
Yeah.
And Xerxe rolled into game number 2 after, like, going for the level 2 trundle gank, some wacky stuff in game 1, and absolutely smurfed on Inspired. His pathing was brilliant. He spotted out Inspired. He showed up where he needed to be. He got double scuttle crab. He stole away the grump. He killed top lane. Like, this is what I expected to see from Xerxe, and we heard Dan talking about it in the interview too. He thought the top lane matchup was completely blown away, not because the 1v1, but because of the jungler difference. So I need to see Inspired mix things up, figure out a way to hide information away from Xerxe. Otherwise, Xerxe is going to be able to break the rogue solo lanes, and it's going to be bad news for them.
The question is, what will he do that on? Again, Karthus and Gragas have found themselves in the ban pool. Those two have remained consistent for Rogue all series long. Syndra Kalista, consistent all series long. Thank you, Origen, for doing what I and all of Reddit and all of social media are asking for. Ban Renekton. Stop first picking it. And instead, we've seen the Aphelios locked in. Ooh! And an Echo. Oh, this actually gives me... Okay, I need to do some research quickly. Ender, what do you think of the Echo? Where's it going to land? I think this is also the first Nautilus that we've seen in the series. I think we've had a lot of uniques. Give me a second to look at some numbers.
Yeah, no problem. Go get your quick stats, even though they might be like slower stats than normal. We'll get around to it eventually. Now, as for this Echo pick in the mid lane, this is actually something, if you remember when Jizuke played in the LEC, he picked this into the Azir all the time. He really liked it for its ability to take like quick trading windows against the Azir, and of course to try and take over later on in the game, whether it's a side lane or in a team fight. Let's face it, Azir's Emperor Divide is not going to be super effective against a guy that can just rewind time. So I do like this pick a lot for Larssen, and I like it even more because one thing that I wanted to sort of like ask to Larssen, like himself, was like, hey, game 1, game 2, the game has sort of happened around you and Nukeduck. Like, yeah, you guys were there, but it was Azir versus Kassadin, and then it was Azir versus Corki. So it was really decided based on junglers and top laners and team plays, all these things. So it was like, hey, Larssen, do you think you can just sit around and farm all the time? Are you willing to let your team just win or lose the game based off what they do and not you? And I think the Echo is a more selfish pick, and it's a little bit of an ego that I like to see on Larssen.
I like that as well, because when Larssen has played the champions like the Kiana, we've loved it. We've liked that, vision of Larssen. So I'm hopeful. Gonna remain a tiny bit hopeful that maybe Inspired could run that too. We've seen the Echo jungle run amok, but we'll find out in a moment or two, as Aatrox is now locked in on Alphari's side.
Wait a second. Trevor, they just took away all of Finn's champions. They banned both his solo queue champions, the Aurelia and the Kled. They banned the Renekton earlier. They now picked the Aatrox. Set's gone. I actually have no idea. What is he going to pick? Oh, wait, Ornn's up.
Yeah.
Never mind.
The thing that's great about this, though, Ornn making it all the way down to second phase, even like second to last pick on Rogue's side. Number one, it shows you that Origen's priority on the pick, Origen's value on the pick, significantly reduced versus their series against Fnatic. They've gone a different way, they're playing a different style. Now that the comp from Rogue is locked in, we know that Echo's mid or on top, Jarvan jungle. We're looking for a jungler on Xerxe's side.
Yeah.
I mean, what does he run?
Honestly, Origen are one of the only teams in the LEC that regularly save last pick for jungle, and I like this. It's a Pantheon lock-in. Again, not one that's been super popular in Europe, but it has popped up quite a few games. This is a champion that can try to match the early game pressure of a Jarvan, of course. Lots of early game damage on this pick here for Xerxe, and is one that can really punish melee mid laners like the Echo. If Larssen is not managing his mini waves properly, Echo can die a lot here if he doesn't have the vision around him to set up by.
That is so fun. What I love is expectations around what do these players want to do differently. You said that you could see Xerxe running circles around Inspired. He showed it in game 2. Great play. Now he's on a champion that has a semi-global ult. He could do that even further away.
Yeah.
But now also the pressure is going to be a little bit on Larssen. He's now on a champion that ideally wants to get involved in the thick of things, wants to cause trouble, use that ultimate, use the mobility and the Echo to play around the map, and hopefully get involved for Rogue to increase their chances at winning the series. Reminder that when we started the day, OG were the heavy favorites. These teams have fairly similar play styles, and yes, Rogue looked great in game 1, but now they need to prove they're an actual contender taking down at a BO5 now that they've lost a game and they've had to pivot their strategy.
Right, because Origen are coming into this one with the momentum here. This is going to be a game. We might have more kills in this game 3 than we had in games 1 and 2 combined here. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be fun. I'm excited to see us get onto the Rift.
Oh, I certainly hope so. Rogue versus Origen are loading up for game number 3. Yes, did not forget about the video this time round. Landed the intro. We have 6 new unique champions picked this game. I asked you if I had a chance to do some research.
For our teams, right? I've
For
seen
our
these
teams
champions picked.
That
in
is
the LEC.
correct.
Perfect.
So here's the setup as we have a moment or two's time. When OG played Fnatic in their 4-game series, there was only 23 unique champions that hit the Rift. You know, they traded champions back and forth. When Rogue played Misfits, there was only 26 unique champions that hit the Rift across their 4 games. In the 3 games that we've already played, there are 24 unique champions that have come out. And in this game alone, there are 6 unique champions that have been introduced. It's just telling you a lot of the diversity, a lot of the champion pools that are being dipped into. And now that we have a repeat performance on the Ornn, for example, from Finn, we see the Nukeduck, the Azir coming in for Nukeduck, playing the opposite to Larssen. Now we get to see who's better on those equivalent champions. But I do find it very interesting that in 3 games already, we are nearing as many uniques in a 4-game series, and there's still potentially 2 games to play.
Right, and I'm a big fan of this, especially like looking through the Origen lens on this one, because this was a team that got criticized pretty heavily in their series against Fnatic for not adapting on the fly quite enough, and we saw how they made some pretty solid moves going into game number 2, and even after a super convincing home run of a victory against Rogue, they're still willing to change things, because quite frankly, like, Rogue changed things coming into this one. Like, the Echo was a curveball picked very early on into the draft that Larssen must have been sitting on for a while here, because there have been a lot of Azir picks in the past few weeks. So I'm really curious to see what he can do with this one up against the side of Origen, because as I was sort of alluding to in the draft, if the game plays out the same and Xerxe has that early game performance that we expected him to have coming into this series, I feel like he's the type of player that can just like explode the game away from Rogue.
Now the question I have for you is...
Oh, this is so cool!
Oh, a little hop over the wall. Destiny and Xerxe, they managed to find themselves a catfish, and that was just beautiful.
Oh
that was just straight up beautiful.
Like, Xerxe is like 500 IQ, I swear. Like, so... his pathing was really, really insane right there. So he goes red buff into Raptors into his Gromp camp right there. That takes him over towards level 3. And then when Vander pushes bot lane and walks in to put a ward down, he's confused. He's like, why is there a blue buff here, but the Gromp's gone, and where's the jungler? Where there's a ward over the wall, so Xerxe didn't even have to flash. He just W'd over the wall. That was actually like 5 head, like 200 IQ. I'm freaking out here as a jungle main because I literally said this in game 1 too. When I watch Xerxe play the jungle, like I learn new things. And I just learned a new thing right there. That was sweet.
And the reason that you're so excited now is the way game 1 started, you were scratching your 5 head quite extensively. Like, hey, what was that weird level 2 gank? Xerxe on the Trundle. When are you going to play League of Legends? He showed up in game 2 with a hell of a performance on set. He's got a kill to his name already and given Destiny a foot up. I like Destiny on Nautilus. I think it's one of his better champions. Needs to be a little careful with the dredge line at times. But now on the similar token, let's look at the other side of the map. Finn on this Ornn is already pushing Alphari backwards. We know Finn's Ornn is very, very competent, very comfortable. He does like to play around the bottom lane. So keep your eyes on the teleport timers and when and where Finn decides to back. Traditionally, he's trying to help out another lane.
And this is already off to a wonderful start for him, assuming he doesn't get ganked trying to push it in, because notice it's a cannon minion. So Finn really wants to stick around here, but he has a good ward to spot out this gank that he fell victim to in game number 1, I believe it was.
Yes.
Or sorry, game number 2, where it was that Predator gank from the set at 5 minutes. Well, this is 4:40, and Xerxe has faked him out. If Finn goes for the last hit, he may very well die, or at the very least lose his flash.
Find out. Flash is still available to Finn, level 5. Nobody's coming in for support. Inspired is still a while away. There's the stunt, very well timed. Finn able to buffer that dash, and he manages to get himself to safety. So no real harm there. I want to see again whether he decides to teleport back. He's level 5. When Finn did play in game number 1, he actually hit level 6 in lane with Hans and Vander. And while that's going on, Larssen gets a good electrocute chunk onto Nukeduck, and Xerxe's one team in the wings. This could be a 2v2.
Yeah, Nukeduck doesn't have to flash away from that one. I think he's going to be all right and get back to base. Should just TP back in towards lane. Like, a lot just happened that I want to try and unpack, because, like, first of all, like, I think Xerxe jumped the gun a little bit in the top lane play. Should have waited for Finn to walk forward for a last step before pulling the trigger, and then I think he should be able to get a flash there with the Aatrox to set him up. But if we even zoom back further and, like, look at what Inspired was doing in his early pathing and what led Xerxe to believe that, like, this ward was coming, because, like, that path was a little bit odd. Like, Inspired, I remember even last year, so often on these like level 2, level 3 junglers would take 3 camps, hit level 3, and then invade the enemy blue buff when he was playing blue side with his support. Like his bot lane's pushing up, they go in and ward. So I honestly believe that this is like brilliant scouting from Origen to be able to see that and see the tendency from Inspired and from Rogue as a team to be able to make that play happen. And that is just like a terrifying prospect to think that they actually read Rogue that hard.
And the thing is, if we can see it happening again, right, consistently, if we can see it playing out, say in the next game, like if you assume that Origen get themselves to match point, then they've downloaded their opponents effectively. That's kind of the concept that you want to talk about. And I know we focused fairly heavily on the Inspired versus Xerxe framework this game, but that's because it truly has felt like the jungler that's got their laners ahead has just allowed that snowball to continue. The analyst has talked about it a moment or two ago. Now there's already a kill on the board here for Origen. Very good flash from Alphari. Well, the Forger comes up, manages to sidestep the flag and drag. No Cataclysm, and Alphari might be able to just walk himself away. Knock up into the air, manages to get at least a tower shot or 2 onto Finn, but he does eventually go down, and Alphari survived a lot longer than expected.
Yeah, Alphari was juking everything, left, right there, you know, the quickness, getting away from those shots, but in the end is just run down by Ornn, because Ornn does a lot of damage too. Ornn with Doran's Blade Start, I didn't even notice that. For the big claps right there, is able to finish off the kill. And hey, Finn didn't even have to use his flash to secure that one either. So he's been having a great old time up here in the top side and still has the TP too. So as we were talking about before, Finn maintaining that advantage even after having to base twice now in this lane is still going to be looking for a potential play towards the bottom side of the map, especially now that Hansama has ticked over to level 6, Inspired now has his ultimate as well. So if Rogue's bot lane is able to set up that wave to start slowly pushing in on towards that side, then look for these types of moves. Oh no, he missed the ward.
Yep, not going to get inside the tri-bush, is it? Observers, can you toggle the vision? We'll find out in a moment or two.
No,
Nope,
okay.
There we go. Not
I was like
inside the
pretty sure
tri-bush.
it wasn't, but it's hard to tell when you have like perfect vision of the map.
That's it. Godmode Vision. But talking about ultimates, Xerxe has just unlocked that Grand Starfall as well. These teams are bang on even. It is a Mountain Drake to fight over, and you can see some of the vision being extended and pushed into Origen's Eastern Quadrant. So this may signal a rogue challenge. Devour comes out from Vander. Inspired's going to be able to snipe it away. But this is now a 4-on-3. Flash already used by Hansama for an enemy blue buff. Don't know how I feel, but it has been denied from Nukeduck.
But Trevor, this is actually what I was saying. Remember when Xerxe got the kill onto Vander? That's the play I was talking about. It's the blue buff invade. And Rogue Inspired loves to run this play, whether it's at, the initial clear or the second respawn. This is something
just keep doing it.
he likes to do because sometimes it's hard to gank lanes, right? It's hard to gank mid against Azir. It's hard to gank bot against a cleanse. It's about him getting into the enemy jungle, and that's how he likes to play. It's about attacking his direct opponent here as they start up the Drake.
They do indeed. Destiny is going to be backed up by Upset. Mountain Drake secured. So despite OG getting the first blood, Rogue have now bounced back with a kill of their own, as well as the first dragon. That's going to be a stun. Flash away from the Dredge line. Inspired, playing with his life, but he manages to escape.
All right, so Rogue are getting a little excited here for some jungle camps. They got the blue buff, but they lost Hansama's flash. Inspired did not get the Scuttle Crab, and now he's lost his flash as well. And notice with the information that Inspired was bot side, Alphari walked in. He has now cleared, I believe, the control ward he spotted out a couple minutes ago, and also warded the Origen blue buff. So this opens up the opportunity to invade, but notice because Rogue's lane has recalled, Origen are not going to make that play happen. They're slow on the reset, and they respect the fact that it's past 8 minutes. The bot lane from Rogue can be moving towards the top side, which of course it is because the Drake is gone. This is a play we have seen run in every single game so far this series, where the team that takes the Drake on the bottom side is able to get the first reset and come up here to play around the Herald. And while it hasn't always resulted in an immediate Herald take, it has always been that team with the early mountain, with the pressure to be able to lock it in. Now the key difference is, this game, there's been kills going both ways, so it's not exactly certain which way the cookie's going to crumble in this one.
Yeah, and of course, I like the mention or bringing up the fact that Rift Herald is there, because even if a team doesn't immediately start it, the invisible pressure that they could make a misplay somewhere, make a showing that somebody's on the other side of the rift, and open up that possibility. It's that unspoken threat, so to speak, that you also need to factor in. Inspired is now waiting around. Teleport will be available for Larssen in a few minutes, and I want to once again bring the discussion back to Larssen. After a potential engage here, Inspired does have Cataclysm but no Flash, and Xerxe does have the Grand Starfall. I want to ask your opinion on what you'd like to see Larssen doing. He's just finished off the Proto Belt. He's under a little bit of threat potentially, as Xerxe is now just spotted off everybody on Rogue. And my eyes are on him to see what he can do, change his playstyle. We have seen him roaming. He's on a very different pick from the 2 previous games, and arguably he has to have a large impact on this champion. To help Rogue out.
Right, so the Echo into Azir matchup is a bit of an interesting one, because it's not necessarily about like, oh, this champion can't just immediately roam. He doesn't get free priority. But now he does. Now that the Proto Belt has come through, it's really easy for him to clear away this wave and then look to move around the map. But again, I don't think it's going to be about looking to roam and dive towers. It's about getting pressure inside of the river and inside of the enemy jungle, because post level 9, post first item, this Echo has a whole lot of burst, and that's where his mid game is going to unlock in these skirmishes when there's like 2, 3, 4 members of OG around. There's not enough CC for OG unless they're all going to be there to be able to lock him down and coordinate well to burst him before he can get his ult off.
Right, okay, so I'll keep my eyes open for that then, and obviously Proto Belt's going to help out. Phase Dive going to do a lot of work. The Rift Herald eventually secured. Rogue made the swap 2 and a bit minutes ago. They were able to push back the OG bottom lane once Xerxe backed, and that's going to be a tongue lashing onto Upset. But there's support from Destiny, and Nukeduck has started to make the move. Larssen, if you can get a parallel convergence, maybe. Flag and drag comes out, teleport coming down, the stopwatch has been used. Nukeduck's Emperor's Divide is fantastic. The Grand Starfall comes down. This has gone horribly, horribly wrong for Rogue. They thought they had an easy pick, and they could not have been more incorrect. That's 3 kills already. Make that number 4 as the Umbral chains. 1 more auto. Come on, Alphari. He gets it down. 4 for Origen.
Rogue just went way too deep right there. Everyone flying on into the play. Finn is teleporting up to top lane, but he's zoned from the rest of his team. And Origen are all right there. Xerxe is able to fly in with the ultimate. TPs come through. That was just an absolute mess. And it starts out, you know, Upset gets a little forward. Destiny says, I'm going in. Like, Rogue, you have 4 people here. Yes, you have more people at the start of the play, but Destiny has stopwatch to stall. Nukeduck is already here, and they're trapped between 2 towers and a wall that they cannot get across because that Emperor's Divide is absolutely brutal there from Nukeduck. It was Larssen and the rest of Rogue trying to make the roam happen, but it just did not work at all.
Chasing just a little too far. The Emperor's Divide, honestly, that as soon as you see the ultimate come out, you just know it's donezo. You just know Origen are going to win that fight. 2-0-2 for Xerxe on his Pantheon. 1-1-2 on Alphari on Aatrox now. 1-0-2-1-0-2 for Nukeduck and Upset. Nash's Tooth already completed. Essence Reaver as well as the Warhammer secured. Correction, BF Sword and the Warhammer for Upset at the moment. But I mean, 2,000 gold lead. This is a fantastic position for OG, despite conceding the first dragon. They've just absolutely taken control of this mid game.
Yeah, we may see another fight here. So
Ooh,
Rogue
Herald
dropping the Herald to try and buy themselves time. They want to be the ones to start up the Cloud Drake, and notice it's actually going to be a no contest from OG. Alphari says, nope, I'm going to go back to the top lane without teleport here. This is a very rogue-like, actually, when we're looking at both top laners, like Finn's the guy that's, oh, I'm going to lose the wave top lane even though I don't have TP. He runs down here for the objective. So that's the second Drake of the game secured for his team. Meanwhile, Alphari is going to fully push in this wave and get some gold for himself. I don't think Origen necessarily needed to fight over that. You know, both teams are sort of waiting for all their ultimates to come back off of cooldown, and Origen do have the lead for the time being. Should be able to trade towers on the map as well, and weren't in really good position to go for that in the first place.
And actually, I'm going to apologize. I got a little too hyphy, and I made a call that Origen in complete control. They've lost 2 dragons. It's a 2k gold difference. There's a lot of possibilities here.
And hey,
I got excited.
No, for sure. And if they had wanted to bring 5 people down to the bot side river, they could have. They probably would have won that fight, but that's not necessarily the Origen way, right?
No.
You'd say that would be like a 60-40 or something, like just throwing numbers out there. Obviously, those don't actually mean anything. But it would have been a close call at this point in the game, especially as now OG are all finishing off their first completed items. They're going to be a lot more confident moving forward.
Well, at 15 minutes into this one, with 6 kills on the board already, I just want you to know that Game 1 had 11 kills, Game 2 had 9 kills. So there is a strong likelihood that we may be able to break the kill scores, especially when you look at the champions on the Rift. Aatrox, Pantheon, you know, plus then an MF bullet time on top of it. On the other side, Jarvan, Echo, TK, like these guys, they want to throw themselves at the opposition composition. And with the fact that Rogue is a little bit on the back foot in terms of the gold, but they do have 2 dragons towards the Ocean Soul, and an Ocean Soul you never want to give away. Do you think that Rogue just set their sights on playing around dragons and try to stem the bleeding until the next spawn?
I mean, that has to be their goal, but it's not free like it was in the last games, because in the last 2 games, the team with the first 2 just sort of got the rest of them, and the other squad couldn't actually contest.
Yes.
In this game, that is not the same read. So, yes, Rogue would love to do that, but if you're projecting 3 minutes into the future, this 3k gold lead from OG with the bot lane tower that they should secure here off of this push is probably going to be around a 4k gold lead, right? Like, Origen are going to be in a much better position. So it is very likely that Rogues decide, hey, we can actually just give over Drake. We don't need to play towards the soul. We just know that we have at least 20 minutes before OG can pick it up themselves.
Got it. I totally understand that. Play a little bit safer. Get some scaling, maybe get some Ornn items and Ornn upgrades on your side before you really look for those contests. If you have just joined us, we are 17 minutes into Game 3. Rogue and Origen traded wins. Both of them picking up victories on the red side.
Wait,
both
they're win trading?
Very convincing. No, not. They traded victory. No, stop saying traded. They each picked up a victory. I'll get through it in the end, my man. Thank you for the support.
All right, you saved it.
Thank you.
No one will suspect a thing now, Trevor.
But what I really find interesting is that, you know, if you were to turn off nameplates and we're going to look at the games, there's been such differences you wouldn't really be able to tell. And now Larssen, after 2 games we've played basically without him, now he's on the Echo under a lot of pressure from Xerxe and Alphari. He uses the flash to get to safety. He's working towards his second item, and my eyes are going to be on him. I want to see Larssen step up for Rogue, have a larger impact on this champion, see if he can find those flanks. If he can use the distraction of the Ornn and the Jarvan, once we get to these skirmishes, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him to look for Nukeduck and upset, because if they have to deal with the rest of Rogue, he may be able to just dart around the fight uncontested.
Yeah, this is a really fun challenge here on the Echo this game too, because in a lot of games, you don't necessarily have like team setup to be able to land the perfect W, because the W I think is a 2.25 second stun if you're able to land it onto your enemies as the Echo here. But in this game, you have a Jarvan ult and an Ornn ult, both long-range gap close that can try to set it up. So this is a game where if Larssen can work really well with Inspired and Finn, like that combination is absolutely nasty. That can blow up a backliner. Like Upset has cleanse, so he's probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
But if you could catch out a Nukeduck or something like that with that lockdown, like, oh man, that is going to be brutal. So that's what I'm like, sort of like hoping to see here from Larssen, because those are the type of plays that can make this Echo pick go from being like, well, it's 0-1 with 170 CS to instantly like 1v5, like absolutely carrying in these fights.
And again, it's really interesting when you think of the dynamic, right? Echo kind of wants to be looking either for a flank or using the Ornn or the Jarvan distraction. Hans Sama on the Aphelios has so many different ways he can play a team fight, and depending on how it's set up, whether he wants to play for the range or whether he wants to get in nice and close with Chakrams, if he gets a good Moonlight Vigil, that also can be such a deal breaker. But I think the point I want to build towards is that the burden of execution is quite high on the composition of Rogue. They have to facilitate a number of champions from different angles, whereas I think on OG it's a little bit more linear. It can be a little bit more straightforward. So I'm wondering whether or not Rogue are going to have the capabilities to actually pull off those fights. And just like you predicted, Ender, Rogue will concede this dragon. They're not in any risk. It's not a big deal right now. And they are still 2 dragons away from that Ocean Soul.
Yeah, it is still a trade for Rogue, though, so this is a nice move. They had, of course, picked up the Rift Herald a little bit earlier, so they go ahead and drop that in top lane and give that tier 2 tower money over towards Larssen. So just giving him the resources he needs. You can see it's actually the Nashor's 2nd second on the Echo, which has been picking up a whole lot of popularity here on the pick. It's about getting towards that 40% CDR very, very quickly, and also means you can proc your passive a whole lot more. That 3 hit there going to be a lot. In a side lane too, with those AP ratios, you can shred through towers as well, which is the other side of this Echo coin, because of course we were talking about how the team fight, can you like layer all these things up and sort of build out that 5v5 perfectly? Well, Larssen can also take this Echo into a side lane, because against Nazir, he's going to have a pretty good time. He can clear away these waves easily. He can put some threat down, but he also has to consider the fact that there is a Pantheon on the other team. So there's globals with him, with the Tom Kench. Like, a lot of people can show up into a side lane very quickly, which is one of the reasons why this game could just blow up instantly, right? If Larssen has a wave bot side and Rogue are able to instantly warp 2 people down there with an Abyssal Voyage, like, you could go for some really clever and creative moves here because of this compositions.
Look at the vision in the river as well. Rogue have got themselves a number of wards down the river. They've got Inspired and Larssen pushing up towards that inner tower in the bottom lane. 22 minutes in, that gold lead is still sitting at 3,000. It is still Origen favored. Obviously, the later we go, the less you really care about that gold, and the Ornn upgrades will slowly start to trickle in. Nukeduck's Banshee's Veil, complemented by the Nash's Tooth. You've got 1.5 items for Alphari, Black Cleaver for both him and Xerxe. And I'm just trying to see where the next big engage is going to come from. Logic is going to tell you it'll be around this mid tower, either of them, or the dragon. So often when those mid towers are standing this late into the game, I feel like you'll see a team try to push for priority in that lane, try to take the tower down, and sort of threaten to then fall back to dragon if there's no contest. So I want to see if that is actually what's going to play out here.
Right, so here's what I'm thinking, Trevor, is I actually don't think we're going to see a big fight break out in mid lane. I think it will be the Drake, primarily because if we're looking at OG, who have the advantage right now, they're probably the ones that are going to initiate the next big fight. They can attack a side lane, like I was saying with this Pantheon pick.
Yeah, they absolutely can. The Empress Divide does a lot of work, though, and Larssen is going to get shut down. I mean, he almost took out Nukeduck. That's not bad, but an easy kill for OG.
Well, that was just a really nice move. And again, like, Rogue had just put so much vision on the bot side of the map, so Larssen was probably like in the shop or something. He wasn't looking at his character model, walking straight down into the bottom lane, gets jumped on by Nukeduck, and Xerxe does not suspect a thing. That's rough. And you can see Xerxe is still sitting around here, wants to make sure Nukeduck can get this way all the way back into the tower before they make another move themselves. What I was going to jump into, though, was the fact that OG, when they play around mid lane, it's usually because they have two side lane champs that love to get on flanks, right? So they'll push out. Oh, hold that thought, because that's a ulti on towards Nukeduck.
Well, Call the Forge God kind of anticipating the slide, but it didn't land. Now all of a sudden, Vander's the one that's been caught out. You thought you were hunting Nukeduck, but OG were hunting you. Nukeduck almost gets taken down and does finally get killed by Finn in one of the slowest solo kills we've seen. Hans with the Moonlight Vigil is now being backed up by Larssen. Rogue, they're right back into this game. Or are they? Dredge Line captures onto Inspired. Larsen's going to phase dive over the wall. That's a double route onto Destiny. He's forced to flash. And that was a lot of shenanigans that ends in a 2v2.
I need a replay instantly on that one.
I do too.
I have no idea what just happened right there, because like OG got the initial kill right on towards Larssen, who had TP up, and I think he was able to come in on a flank ward as well here. So the recall is spotted out here by Rogue, I do believe. They just ulti down on towards Nukeduck and misses the initial cast, but then it gets really, really uncomfortable, because on the top side of the map, Vander is caught out, but on the bottom side, Nukeduck is just getting solo killed by Ornn. Like, what can't Ornn do? He can tank for the front line, he can kill the enemy backline, he does everything, right? Then the two teleports come in towards the back, and Upset is dreadfully out of position because his front line is still being zoned 1v2 by Inspired, who has the Stone Plate. He doesn't take any damage from Pantheon Jungle and the support Nautilus there. So because Rogue were able to snipe out the two carries, they're the ones that walk away like quote-unquote victorious. It was a 2v2 or 2-4-2 overall, but Rogue got a little bit more pressure off the back of that.
And I think you have to feel that of the 8 kills on Origin's side, 3 of them on Pantheon, 2 of them on Azir, 2 of them on MF, you're pretty happy with that spread. On the other side, 2 of your team's 3 kills. Yes, being on Finn's Ornn is very valuable, but you really want some of that gold on Echo and Aphelios. Mid lane siege is being started off while the dragon is alive. Nobody's going for the tower yet.
Right, look at Larssen over on the side here. He's really trying to look and figure out a way to get into the back line right there, because that is how Rogue win the fight. If Larssen can be hitting a Nukeduck or an Upset, neither of which have their flashes up and ready to go.
Are OG conceding this? Or are they going to challenge? I mean, looking at ultimates, all 5 available for OG. Rogue, they've just started the Dragon. Xerxes south of the Dragon itself, with the rest of Rogue are now starting to push mid. They didn't actually commit to the Dragon. Finn just stepped into the pit. The tower is the name of the game right now, as Finn will get caught out. The Umbral dash from Alphari getting him over the wall and landing a bunch of Qs. Bullet time from Upset does not do a lot of damage, but this looks good for Rogue. The Call of the Forge God, kill number 4. Alphari's trying to swing and miss. The chains will not find themselves a target. And holy moly, only 1 kill. I'm very surprised by that. But Rogue get the kill, and they get away.
Yeah, it just turns into a kill and a couple of flashes right there. But that was a situation where, like, OG thought they were catching out Finn, but Finn, he's a monster right now. He's got his double Ornn upgrades. He's super, super tanky in the middle of it all. And Inspired made the call to jump in and back Finn up. It was a really nice combo down there to get Nukeduck, who, again, had no flash. He was caught in that tight choke point with 2 OG members on the right-hand side, 2 OG members on the left-hand side. So because Rogue were so decisive in the way they attacked here, the fight became very split. I think it was lost the second bullet time came out from Upset, because now that bullet time is down, MF has no damage in the fight. She could still be zoned out here like this and be layering it down in ultimate. Then you're cutting through Finn, you're cutting through Inspired. Like, you have a fighting chance. Finn probably goes down in that exchange for 1-for-1 overall. And maybe then you can contest a Drake. But because the ult went down in a really strange manner where it hits Vander and then he just eats up Hansama, so no damage really comes
Was it
through.
also clearing the wave to defend the tower?
So it was a bit to clear the wave there too, but I feel like Origen had the, like, there was a fight like starting to break out right there, and I wouldn't have pulled the trigger so soon if I was Upset.
Got it, got it. Well, let's see what it does. The Dragon was then picked up, so now Rogue are 1 Drake away from the soul. The gold lead is negligible. I don't care anymore. Nukeduck crucially working towards that Rabadon's death cap, and Upset has now got IE to complement his Essence Reaver. So we're scaling as far as the itemization and the damage is concerned. With 1 Dragon away from Soul Point, Rogue have to have a high priority on that Drake. But as far as the players and their decision making is going, I am left a little wanting right now. It feels like OG have been dictating the pace of the game. It feels like their proactive steps have been more punishing or valuable. And even the few times Rogue have tried to punch back, it kind of feels like OG were the ones that started it, and it was a counter-attack from Rogue, as opposed to them making the play. Do you think that's fair?
So, like, yeah, Origen have been making some good moves in this game, but I don't actually think it ends up putting Rogue at much of a disadvantage overall. Like, even that fight right there, like, most of the game was actually like thrown away with Rogue making that really over-aggressive play between the two top lane towers. And since then, I feel like they have played pretty decently overall, barring, you know, Larssen getting picked in the side lane, but even then they turned it around on Origen's head right there. I feel that Rogue are in a comfortable position at the moment. They're one Drake away from Soul Point. They have Ornn upgrades coming through. Molten Edge now on towards Hans Sama. Pretty soon Larssen should be able to finish off, you know, a Rabadon's, get that one upgraded himself too. And then the team fights aren't too bad, in all honesty, right? Like, Larsen's going to be hitting level 16. That ultimate's going to be on a stupidly low cooldown. That gives him infinitely more side lane pressure on that Echo too. Even though they're down 2k gold, this game is very, very close, Trevor.
Tell me how you really feel about Echo Ultimate Ender. Oh, my word. Yeah, exactly. And I guess, like, don't forget the pressures on Rogue, right? Yes, they had a great game in game one, but Origen won the second game, Origen leading. So player preferences and tendencies after Rogue. They picked up that win last weekend from Misfits. It was a interesting series, and one that we're getting a little bit of a taste now of how Rogue are looking in these playoffs. Bullet Time does a lot of work. Vander's Grey Health is popped. He devoured Hans Summer to buy him. I actually think that was a fantastic devour, but it has forced Rogue backwards. And has this opened up Baron? Origen are peeling back, but that definitely was a punch in the face by OG.
Right, so it hasn't opened up Baron just yet. It has given them control over this top side just a little bit, but notice Finn also had to commit his teleport into that fight right there too. So now it has to be Larssen going into a side lane, which, to be fair, is probably what Rogue wanted anyway, but it gives them one fewer option for how they want to approach this later in towards the game. I actually wonder, in about a minute now, Nukeduck is going to have his teleport up once more. This is one of those situations where I would love to see OG do a really sneaky play in the bot lane where, like, Alphari's the one to walk in first, he starts pushing the wave, and then a wild Nukeduck appears. Like, he just pops out of the brush, he's gonna be right there, and then because you both have TP, a Baron can't be responded on the other side of the map. But you can really throw down the gauntlet, start taking towers, look for a kill, threaten an inhibitor with that type of advantage, and just force Rogue to act, because even if Rogue want to come down with an Abyssal Voyage, well, then you both TP up towards topside and draw on the Baron immediately too.
The question that complicates it for me is that Ocean Soul point. You know, like, are OG willing to give up the Ocean Soul? Let's say that plays out and the trade is OG get Baron and Rogue get Ocean Soul.
So first will come the Drake. And then after that, because Baron takes so much longer to kill, that's when you can realistically threaten a double side lane play like that.
And you can see with all the vision and the invades that OG are setting up, this is the play they want. 20 seconds until this Drake is available. Void Staff was the pickup from Larssen, by the way, not the death cap just yet. Cheaper item, of course. Nukeduck did complete his death cap, and Alphari got himself the Death Dance, the Cleaver, and the GA. Bloodthirster complements Upset in his inventory, and now Ocean Drake is up. Destiny gets a point-blank auto-attack and Dredge line onto Inspired. Call of the Forge God comes out, and Alphari is able to fly over the wall. The Bullet Time does a lot of damage onto Rogue, and they've traded a support for an AD carry. That is the best possible trade ever. Vander is now in trouble as the Emperor's Divide knocks him as well as Inspired back. A grand Starfall sends Xerxe flying into Finn's face. And that's 3 kills for 1. A mid-tower picked up. OG 4,000 gold in the lead, and the Rift is at their control.
Oh, what a beautiful flank there from Alphari. He walked all the way down and around underneath Rogue, waited to. He could have popped over the wall sooner, but he waited until Hans Sama was right there before jumping on him. Then Xerxe comes in for the follow-up. Like, Alphari, that's the reason, not just his laning prowess, that he's regarded as one of the best top laners in the league, if not the best currently. It's because he can also pop off in the team fights.
And in terms of all those team fights, Origen have now picked up more kills this game than the 2 previous ones combined, and we are far from over. They are in control. 5,000 gold up, got themselves the 2 Drakes. They've delayed that Ocean Soul, and this starts with Destiny just using the Ocean Rift to his advantage, sitting in the bush.
Yeah, Destiny's just buying time, but it's Alphari. Don't be mistaken. He's hiding on the bottom of your screen for now, tops over the wall, gets on towards Hansama. Vander tries to save him, but the second he gets spit out, Xerxe is there, showing up as well to get the kill. And because the fight was sort of all the front line minus Vander was running away from the rest of it too, so there was no one to even try and punish and turn there with upset too, and that has to change for Rogue in these fights. The fights need to be front to back with the one solo flank as Larssen coming in on the side, because if Hansama doesn't have protection, the fight will be lost. Rogue will not have enough damage without Aphelios staying alive the whole time.
And now Origen are in a position where they can just look to completely nullify Rogue. That little slide from the Sand Soldiers, they just chunk so hard. With Nash's and that death cap, Hansama cannot stand toe-to-toe for very long. He needs to keep at a distance. He needs the front-to-back team fights that you just talked about. And Origen, they picked up 4 towers. This will be number 5. Minion wave top, I think, is pushing slowly towards Rogue. We'll see how long it takes to get there. And Xerxe's got the ultimate if he wants to starfall into a fight. 4-0-4. 35 minutes ago, Ender, you said that Xerxe ran circles around Inspired, and while the early game had fantastic reads, picking off Inspired in those blue buff invades, as it's progressed through, the whole of OG have once again followed Xerxe's lead into controlling the game.
I just love what OG have done in this game, turning around after a few good team fights, because that's what it's come down to. It hasn't been about any flashy things going on. Like, yes, the early game was important, but that balanced out pretty quickly. It was about who picks the better fights, and when we came into the series, we expected that to be the name of the game. It was Rogue versus OG. It's team fights. Who's going to be better on the day? And in game number 2 and game number 3 especially, it has been Origen over and over.
Yeah, and I Larsen's Echo, it was phase 1, pick. It was the 3rd pick in the first half of the draft, and 1, 2, and 1. I just haven't seen enough out of it. I haven't seen enough opportunity. Now it is very difficult just singling that out because the game hasn't gone Rogue's way. Origen have had a little bit of advantage when it comes to pushing the side lanes. They've been in a more controlling position, I should say. So it's been more difficult for Larsen's Echo to actually find a way into the game. And now that they're playing against Baron, they've lost another tower in the top lane. Inhibitor tower might just fall to this cannon creep. 1 or 2 more autos, and another one's falling top. I mean, OG have got the game
here we
to
go.
lose.
Coming in on the flank is Larssen. He's going real fast on towards upset.
This is exactly what I want to see out of the Echo. He is looking for upset, and he finds him. It's Hansama that gets the shutdown. Now Finn manages to get that volcanic charge and the eruption. Gets a knockup. Larssen is stepping forward. He's waiting for the cooldowns. Looking for a time winder, potentially a phase dive. Let's see the spells go out. Dive isn't doing enough. Finn finally goes down. It looked like so many people were hitting Finn, and he finally got killed. Larssen forced to use the ultimate just to escape back to safety, and OG win the fight despite losing their bot laner. They are going to push into the inhib, and it's up to Larssen and Hansama to do something. Hansama got a lot of damage to work with, but he needs to step forward, and that means he's exposed to the Sand Soldiers, the Aatrox, and the Pantheon.
Yeah, with the low HP bars there on Xerxe and Destiny, I believe, OG end up backing away from that play. It's going to be another Ocean Drake in 45 seconds, so we may see the line drawn here. Now, this was the play coming in from Rogue. I really like the idea, with the TP buffs too and the home guards. Larssen is just zooming in towards the back. They layer up the J4 plus Ornn ultimate beautifully. Also the W there from Larssen that we were talking about earlier hits Destiny and would have hit upset had he survived a little bit longer. So the idea is working out for them. Unfortunately, they don't have the damage. And Hansama, who started the fight with red gun, purple gun, didn't have the DPS order to turn that one around.
No, he didn't. There's no DPS from Xerxe here. He almost solo kills Larssen. 4-0-4, mind you. And now all of a sudden Inspired jumps in. Finn, he threw down the teleport. He may go down yet again. Oh my word, that's 2 fights in a row. Bear with me for an analogy. Ender, have you ever been to like an arcade? You know, one of those real life physical arcades where
yes,
there's like
as a matter of fact, I have.
You're very young. I don't know if you kids these days do that, right?
I lived in the arcade when I was a kid.
Oh, I love it. Okay. But you know, the boxing machine, there's always a crowd of people standing around oh, it's not dribbling, but when you like punch it really quickly. Anyways, whoever can hit it the hardest, and everyone watches, and when somebody's really big and they hit it and they set a high score, then you all just take turns trying to beat that high score. That's what it's felt like Finn is. He's that boxing machine. Rogue stood and watched him get punched in the face by everyone from OG twice in a row now. And there's just nothing they can do. He's just getting dunked in these fights.
Yeah, and each time he dies, he goes back to base. He buys another item, which just makes his health higher. So the score the next time he gets punched is even bigger.
Yes, that's literally what it feels like. OG have got 13 kills this game. They're in absolute control with a 10k gold lead. They can pick up the Soul in 4 minutes time. They've already got one Baron. I think they're going to pick up the second Baron and play this one nice and controlled, get themselves to match point. Because reminder, is an elimination game.
No, Trevor, we want happy thoughts here. Origen are going to try to close before the Ocean Soul here. They've got Baron spawning in 5 seconds. This may be make or break for this game. Rogue are down so much right now, 9,000, but they do have Ornn items on their 2 big carries, which is going to try and mend that bridge just a little bit here. They're going to call in the fight right now. This is all.
Baron's not going to be alive by the time they get there. Call of the Forge God comes down. Emperor's Divide has split them up, but Alphari with the flank. He's found Larssen. Destiny's bought so much time for his team before he gets taken out. And there's 2 members of Rogue fighting Alphari alone. The rest of Rogue are now split up. Hans has just been left alone for naught. Baron was picked up, but at what cost? Now Xerxe's running for his life. Rogue have found the team fight. The happy thoughts might be proving true. Xerxe will come back to life after the GA before he is able to take down Inspired with the help of Upset. Now all of a sudden Inspired will take out Xerxe as well. And Alphari with the empowered recall. No way. No way.
What is
GA available? Here? He did think about it. Okay. Baron picked up by OG, team fight victory.
Oh, look at Larssen, look at Larssen. Okay, he didn't pull the trigger, but Nukeduck literally walked into the parallel convergence right there. I thought Larssen was going to go for the one shot, but he didn't make it happen in the end. There are minions inside the Rogue base because that bot lane inhibitor did fall. Don't think Origen should be able to pick any inhibs off on that next push. But you watch this one more time because Alphari has the same idea. It's come in on the flank and make that work. But it's on towards Larssen, who's able to jump away and stall out a lot of time. There's also that big snipe from Hans on towards Destiny to finish off that gun. He's rocking the Calibrum there. That's where all the damage is flying on from. And Blue Gun too, so he's getting the AoE auto attacks as well. So much DPS from range because of this combination coming through from the Aphelios. And as soon as Upset's frontline goes down, he's on the run. Oh no!
The double up as well. Did you see Vander flashed over, missed the tongue lash?
Yeah.
And the double up actually carried it through to Inspired. I missed that on the first call. And look, I'm all for happy thoughts. I actually told this to Monica and I opened up my inner soul and I said, my on-camera personality, Quickshot, is always an optimist. I'm going to let my off-camera personality through a little bit. I think OG are going to go for the soul. I think with the fact that the fight didn't go their way, I think the safe way to do this, get the soul, survive some of that long-range poke, back off if you need to, and then just play the slow siege. They've got themselves supers in the bottom lane. They can get themselves supers in the top lane fairly easily, and I think they're doing that. Let's see who's more likely to be correct.
Well, they did hold on to a couple of Baron buffs here, so they still are attempting the siege in towards the mid lane, but it's a little bit difficult to walk up again against that Infernum that Hans Sama has. The wave clear there, absolutely insane now with all the crit chance Hans Sama has for himself. Now, as we gear up, you said it's going to be the Soul. It is going to be the Soul Baron time now.
Yep.
How does this fight play out? Because the big summoner spell I'm looking at is actually Upset, who doesn't have Flash or Cleanse. Everyone, barring Tahm Kench, on Rogue side is going to have theirs available. So this is going to be a situation where Jarvan is looking to dunk that misfortune down with Larssen coming in on an angle. And as long as Rogue can be the one sort of diving and cutting into Origen's team, without that flank coming in from Alphari to split up the team, they're going to be in a good position. They need to go past Alphari.
Oh, no! They got caught out! They were trying to go fishing, but Rogue, they got jumped on first. It was Destiny that found the dredge line, and despite the fact that Larssen was pushing from the side lane, they didn't come in. Now, what was lose?
That's just
Destiny's up and Upset's ultimates were used, so if Rogue can re-engage,
Trevor, check this out. So Inspired just recalled Vander's there too to bring him in on the Abyssal Voyage. Ocean Soul is spawning right now. It's going down so fast he can't make the pits.
Final fight. Win now or
Can he
lose,
get it?
Rogue. It's that simple.
He's in the pit.
Win now or lose. It's a smite fight. Smite fight. Who's going to pick it up? That's a knock up onto Xerxe. It's Xerxe. He gets it. He wins the challenge. He wins the ocean. And that means there's no soul point for Rogue. Now all of a sudden in the fight, this Nukeduck that's gone down is at the cost of Vander. So has Hans. The damage is out. Upset and Alphari reigns supreme. Upset is untouched. And he is looking to run down Larssen. He's going to strut his way up. And the Grand Starfall comes out. The chance was there, Ender. The chance was there. But the team fight power and the gold lead and the items for OG are just too strong.
Oh no, little camaraderie before the Rogue Nexus goes down. They're just dancing. Alphari was dancing all over Rogue in that last fight. Sure, Xerxe picked up the Dragon Smite, but it was Alphari once again who found Hansama and killed him. Once Hansama is down, OG win the fight and Alphari leads his team to another win.
He does indeed. Do a little dance, take down Rogue tonight. That's the song Alphari's singing as OG advance to match point. 2 wins to 1, and out of the last 2 potential games, 1 more victory sets OG up for a showdown with G2 Esports on Sunday. It was an interesting game, this one. I like the pivot in draft. I mentioned it right at the beginning, and 24 unique champions have hit the rift in 3 games already. Now, all of a sudden, Rogue are going to have side selection and go back to that fundamental question. What do we change in our gameplay? What do we change on an individual level to get ourselves back into the game? When we come back, Origen are 1 game away from taking down Rogue. Look at the color of Humanoid. He's got 1. He's got 2. G2 are losing. G2 are losing. Where were you? The rookies of Europe have taken down the world finalists. Mad Lions have defeated G2.
G2 and Fnatic have been dominating Europe for like the past 3 or 4 years, but I think it's my time to end their legacy.
Nukeduck already almost down, he gets caught out, and now Upset to the next target, they're just dead. Origen can't do anything about this, they just get swept off the map.
Their top laner tends to play weak side a lot, which is something I profit from a lot. I'm not too worried about playing a team like Mad Lions.
You've seen our name on the jerseys of amazing teams. Now, we are supporting one more. One that you don't see live on TV. But they are the best team in the world, and they are playing the toughest game. Maybe they're not performing in front of millions, but they are under the pressure of an entire planet. And they don't have fans cheering their names, but they have patients who will forever remember them. And they also need your help to win this game. Stay home like a pro.
Welcome back to the expert panel. Origen and Rogue are now fighting to stay alive in the spring playoffs. They have been all day, but it is most certainly do or die for Rogue now in Game 4. And guys, it's been a wild series, but I want to call one player out who I feel like, after Game 1, has been standing out immensely, and that is Origen's Xerxe. Between the set and the Pantheon, it feels like it's been a pretty immaculate early game jungle performance.
I think it's been pretty good. You know, the first game left a very, very sour taste in my mouth because we had that level 2 gank on Trundle and then he just didn't show up again. Then he came up with the set jungle, the first one I've seen in a competitive play in a long while. He came up with the steal on the Grom, came up with the ganks on the Renekton. Kenna could snowball and boom, Origen was set up for success, and it continued in game number 3.
Yeah, and I feel like it's how he's teaming up with the success for Alphari.
And additionally, looking across, oh, sorry.
Oh, my bad. I was muted. You couldn't hear me, Dracos. The information went through the viewer server. It's all good. And TLDR, Alphari's success. Xerxe transferring his power over to Alphari. For me, especially this game, Alphari and Xerxe's flanks into backline. Ender pointed out during cast just how they were deleting Hansama, because I personally felt that there were a lot of concerns when I looked at these drafts that there's going to be a point at which Origen's composition would lose some steam and itemization so AD heavy outside of that Azir, because Xerxe did opt into the Pantheon jungle, that I thought that this Ornn would be unkillable, but Origen managed to out-team fight them, and a lot of it was because of this man on your screen right here in tandem with his top laner finding Hansama every single time.
Yeah, I'm with you completely on that. Like Alphari with the Aatrox performance, usually you don't see this type of champion doing that well in the later parts, but Xerxe, I like the look of him playing champions that are a bit unorthodox. In the past, I remember him as the Warwick, Zac, Ivan, God, and now we had the set jungle. Pantheon has been played by many. I'm hoping in game number 4 we get another cocktail to round it off and we have a Xerxe party on our hands.
Look, I've always been a big fan of the depth of the Xerxe champion pool when he is being that experimenter, when he is being that mastermind. But I want to start talking about this game. Start looking forward instead of looking back. And to do that, I want to first bring up a replay of one of the fights in this game, because from our discussions, Frostgren, you felt like it kind of illustrated some of the ideas about this series that were important to highlight. Of course, this is happening in red jungle right before the Baron that eventually felt like it led OG to win the game, although to be fair, they had been winning for quite a while.
I think it's just eyes on Alphari right now. This is pretty much, to my opinion, the game-ending fight. Alphari's going to come over this wall and just snap grab Hansama. Now, Vander does gobble him up, and Hansama is going to die with his flash up, but I think at this point it was already kind of like good night as both Pantheon and Aatrox jump on his face. But it just really illustrates that Origen are such a clean 5v5 team. I think we forget it sometimes because their games have been quite slow, and they don't necessarily have to team fight you to beat you. But when we do see it, I've always loved their zone control. I think very early on in the split, I called them an LPL-esque team, and people thought that meant that I was calling them an LPLS team in their aggression, which isn't true, but it's actually just how they control terrain, how they think about flanking on team fights, and how they set up team fights. I thought has been one of our stronger teams in the league.
Yeah, for sure. I think just the whole series is so revolved around the dragons. It's all about getting those drakes, the barons, the rift heralds. That is where all the action happens. Whenever Rogue tried to force anything outside of the boundaries of those objectives, it looked really, really rough. So I think it's going to continue the same way. I agree with the notion that the flanks were on point. Usually something like a Aphelios and a Tamkins is something that has a lot of safety, but in this case, because of the performance of the Aatrox in this game, they got snapped in half over and over again.
And I also think it's interesting because Origen don't usually care about Drakes. Like, I agree with you, Yamato, but they don't usually care about Drakes until it's, like, absolutely necessary, and that is causing the games to get stalled out quite a bit because Origen would rather just funnel and hoover up farm gold. I think Ender said it over the course of the split that they haven't sacked a wave in their life. And so when you do get Nukeduck on champions, I mean, it was Azir this game, but champions that can play out into a side lane, suddenly you get Origen in the 1-3-1 versus the 1-4. And it's been a hot minute since we've seen that because Nukeduck has kind of been on tank duty. But I think it just creates a different beast for Origen. I think it's really where they want to play in their comfort zone. So I expect Nukeduck to continue to deny Larssen the Azir either through bans or picking it away from him. And I hope to see that Nukeduck continues to have a pick that he can also play on a side lane as well as the 5v5.
And I think this is what we kind of predicted for the series. It kind of looks like the Misfits Rogue series, but in this case, Origen being the stronger team, being, you know, these last two games was kind of how we as analysts depicted this series, and it comes down to what do we want Rogue to do in order to create a victory here. I think they need to shock, they need to bring something else, because right now, Origen has their number in draft, banning Azir, picking Azir, and then Finn doesn't have anything that revolves around aggression. They need to dig deep. They need to do something that creates a snowball from the get-go, because when you get a lead, Origen is not going to do anything to break the mold. They play basic. You can't keep playing basic because Origen just does it better.
Look, I'm always excited when shock and awe is the strategy. When mix it up, try something crazy, maybe get a little bit too aggressive at times, take those risks. But Origen, of course, is up 2-1, and one person is very happy about that is Xerxe.
Xerxe, indeed. Thank you, Drakus.
Hi.
And thank you, Peke, for joining me again this week. Yesterday, I talked with Xerxe about this game, and he told me how important mid lane would be. But that was a big lie, obviously, because he is the man in Origen's win here. So what do you think about his performance so far in Origen's victories, especially?
Yeah, I agree a lot. I feel like he has had a huge impact and he's playing out of his mind. First game, maybe first game we played a bit weaker in general, but I think after that he just picked up and he's everywhere during the whole game. So I'm really enjoying it.
One thing that I find weird all the time is the fact that people keep on focusing on Xerxe during the banning phase, especially banning Gragas and Karthus, but he's been one of the most creative junglers in the LEC ever, so why do you think that's so?
But I think that's good for us that they ban him, because I always remember, like long time ago, first time I saw him play, I was really excited every time I saw his Ivern or his Thack. He was like the only player that could play those weird champions that no one played and play them really good. So I'm really happy that they force him into champions that no one plays, because I feel like that's where he shines the most. He's unpredictable and he plays them like if he played them all his life.
Yeah, and we'll see if he has other tools up his sleeve for here, because it's match point. Let's pretend we are in Rogue's heads right now. They will be playing the potential last game on blue side. They had side selection here. So what should Rogue do to bounce back? And does it happen in draft or later during the game?
I think it's more during the game and outside of the game. I think their mental, probably right now they are down because they won the first game on a strong manner, but then they couldn't beat us in the second game. The third game, we made a lot of mistakes, honestly, and they had a potential to come back, but they still couldn't beat us. Like we were just better than them at playing the game, even though they had opportunities. And I feel like this game is going to be about them beating themselves mentally, because they are going to come to the game thinking that they have a hard chance of winning. So if they cannot beat that, I think they're just going to lose.
Okay, so based on the development of this series and your experience in a series like this, do you think Origen can wrap up the series and win after this one?
I think so. I think we're good at this. I think we're good at getting going, and once we get like confident, we get in our comfort zone, I think we're better.
Well, we'll see about that in a few minutes. Thank you very much, Peke, for the interview. And we're going to take a break and come back in 3 minutes for the potential last game of this series. Stay tuned.